How hard has that been to get sober? I mean, to stay sober, how
Uh-huh.
difficult is it on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being like, it's
Um,
ridiculously hard.
I'll tell you the truth. It depends, right? At the beginning, it's very, very hard. It's 10. Okay. You start off because you're in the habit of doing this, whatever it is. And, compulsive behavior, it's like if you limit to alcohol or alcohol and drugs, it's a sort of certain segment of society. If you look at the people that overeat, eat their fucking feelings, and end up just as unhealthy, it's a lot more. If you look at people who shop and gamble or have sex or relationships or use the fucking phone, we're very programmed to seek out rewards and get compulsive about it, gamble, whatever. Nonetheless, it's fucking hard because you've taught yourself this is the only way to ease my pain. I'm in pain. This is the only way to make it better. And I used to go to meetings and hear all these like old timers say, I'm a grateful alcoholic, and the obsession left me a long time ago. And I would get so angry, I'd be like, fuck you, you're not grateful. What are you grateful for? You fucked your life up, you're grateful, congratulations. Boy, I want some of that too. And the obsession left you, what the fuck are you doing here? You don't want to drink? You're not an alcoholic, get the fuck out of here. I'm dealing with problems. I want to have a drink, how about that?
Right.
You're just, and I resented that for a long time. And I went through a series of, I got sober, for a year and a half. I wanted to be sober. I committed to it. And the problem with that fight is like, you can win 1,000 times, you only have to give in once. And you're never going to win all the time.
Right.
So something fundamental has to change. And I hate to say it, but the cure for addiction, the only cure I've seen, and not like these fucking overpriced rehabs or a lot of these fraudulent fixes that are sold to people. They're good people who will support you. Alcoholics Anonymous, I think by and large, is a good organization. It's not the only one. The cure for addiction is suffering. You suffer enough that something inside you goes, I'm done. And I'm like lucky because I hit that point before I lost really the things that were the most important. It was not my career or money, it was my relationship with my kids. And when I felt as if it impacted them, I recognized it. It was the worst day of my life. I made amends. And for a while, I thought maybe this is temporary. Maybe this feeling is going to go away. But since that day, I swear to Christ, I have not ever wanted to drink once. Ever.
Wow.
So it's the easiest thing in the world. Because every time I think about it, I'm just like, holy shit, that's the worst idea in the world. I don't want that. I can't do that. And that's the piece that people find. So now I'm that asshole who's like, I'm grateful. I learned a lot. I actually got to be a better person through this process, and I've lost the obsession.
When I was a teenager, I was addicted to alcohol and got in a lot of trouble and got sober when I was 17. And then 3 years after that, I was on a television show. And that felt great. And it was like this new thing and a new source of, to fill me up. Like when I was young, it was like I was just shy. I just didn't know how to get along in the world. I didn't know how to talk to people. And alcohol was like the best solution for that. The problem is for me, normally you have a window. It's like, it's fun, they say, and then fun with problems and then just problems. Like my window from fun to just problems was so short. And I was a ward of the court and all this stuff. But once I couldn't use alcohol to sort of fill that hole, it was like, oh, success, attention, this is great. And so in a weird way, I got addicted to validation, I guess, or success or whatever that is. And then there was another thing that happened where along the road, of trying to get success and, climb the top of that mountain, attention from women, success with women also became a huge source of validation for me. The problem with that is, like, I'm sure you can guess, like any sort of drug or anything, like, there's never enough. It's sort of always I talk about like this if-then sort of scenario where I thought, if I get this, then I'll be happy. And then I got there, and then it was like, well, okay, well, if I get that, then I'll be happy. And it was never ending. And it's also sadly the same thing with people, it's, oh, if I'm with that, like, this is all subconscious, but like, if I'm with that person, I'll be happy. And then it's not enough. I'm just trying to fill that hole and it never gets filled. So at around the same time I hit the wall with work, my sister-in-law, Iris Torres, given me a book on sex and love addiction. And I'd been in recovery for a long time, right? But I got sober really young. So like I could identify with a lot in the alcohol literature, but like when I read this book, it was like it hit me like a bullet, and it was like, oh my God, that's me. And up until that point, like as crazy as it is, like I had inklings like, okay, maybe this is an issue. My parents had stayed married their whole lives, so like I respected marriage, and like there had been a part of me, even all through it, even at my craziest, where it was like, well, I want to get married. I want to be in a serious relationship. I didn't know how. And after reading that book, it was like, oh, this is an issue that I'm not going to solve on my own. It's such a powerful drug. And I got hooked on it for 20 more years. And the insidious part of that is that I stayed sober from alcohol all that time. So, and I went to meetings, all that time. I even tried to, sponsor other people. And so in my head, it was like, oh, I'm sober. I'm living a spiritual life. Where on the side, I'm acting out now in all these other ways, and I couldn't see it. And even my sponsor was like, who's happily married, he was like, look, whatever happens, but, because I had girlfriends. I could never be faithful to anybody, so I cheated on everyone before Isabel. And he's like, look, the cheating is dishonest. I don't think that's good for your sobriety. But if you're not dating someone and you want to go and hook up, like whatever happens between two consenting adults is fine. Like that's what he said. The problem was I took that and I ran with it and used it as an excuse to, just hook up all over the place. And it was like, well, we're being honest here, right? And like you said, like completely blind to power dynamics or anything like that, but also completely blind to people's feelings. I didn't want to hurt people. And in fact, I wasn't like really a one night stand guy. Like people that I, got together with or dated, like I'd see them for a long time, years. It's just that I couldn't be present for any of them. And the behavior spun out to a point where it was like I was hurting everybody.
I call myself a junkie. I refer to myself as a junkie simply so I demystify it. I call myself a dope fiend because I'm a dope fiend. This is the addiction issue, but I mean, there are lots of forms of addiction in the universe. I was in a good, stable marriage, writing books for children that were bestsellers. I was getting more and more work and more fame and attention and adulation. I got more as my addiction got worse, not less. My high bottom made that denial much more pervasive because it was all working. It's not working. Because if you are asking yourself, can I stop this? Then you're in a prison of your own mind. And I was in that prison, even though I was fabulous and all the bullshit part of show-off business. I had been nursing a secret Vicodin addiction for a very long time, over 10 years. Not one person knew except a Brazilian healer woman. She had been staying with us, and this was December of 98. I make dinner and buy all the food, make the dinner, and wrap the presents, and doing all my thing at Christmas time. And she was staying with us. And I was in my kitchen, and I had a pocket full of Vicodin. I had a glass of wine on the counter. It was it was Vic o'clock. I mean, it was just sort of like cocktail hour. And I pocketed 5 of them, put them in my mouth, took a swig of wine, and from behind me, I heard this. Jamie, I see you. I see you with your little pills, and you think you're so fabulous and so great. But the truth is, you're dead. You're a dead woman. That was a first big, shocking realization that someone saw it, that it wasn't secret, that no one knew. Now it's January 1999, and there was an article in Esquire magazine called Vicodin, My Vicodin, written by a man named Tom Chiarella. And in the article, he describes outing himself by writing the article, that by writing the article, he knew his doctors wouldn't give them to him. He knew that his wife and family were going to be on to him. He was outing himself for a secret that he'd been carrying. And that spoke to me probably louder than anything else. All of a sudden, I went, oh, someone else is just like me. So by February, I went to a friend of mine, early February, and I went to a friend of mine, and we both had kids the same age, and I kind of like sidled up to her and kind of like, and finally, was able to say that I had a problem with Vicodin. And she looked at me and said, yeah, I know, me too. Isn't it amazing? And she gave me, at that moment, the number of a doctor who would write you script. Because prior to that, I didn't really get it from doctors. 5-finger discount, here and there. I had my ways. That night, when I woke up sometime between sleep and waking, I had a moment of clarity which saved my life, which is simply this. I imagined that she would die, and I would attend her funeral, and I would hug her children, and I would have blood on my hands. Or I would die, and she would attend my funeral, and she would hug my children with blood on her hands. And in that moment, I understood that it was going to kill me. And I called a friend of mine who was in recovery, an old colleague of mine, and I was terrified about being a public figure and walking into recovery centers and being around recovery, and I was terrified of it. And I said to my friend who was a long time in recovery, I said, is there any way somebody famous can meet me and go with me into a recovery room? And a woman called me, and I met her, somebody I'd never met, and she walked in with me, and I've been sober since that day. The beautiful part of being able to acknowledge your own illness, being an alcoholic, being a drug addict, to call yourself an alcoholic or a drug addict is a badge of honor, because the secret, the shameful secret, is the reason why it is such a pervasive illness in our industry, in every socioeconomic strata, in every country in the world. It is the secret shame that keeps people locked up in their disease. I'm sober today. Am I going to be sober for the rest of my life? I hope so. I'm going to do everything I can to be. But I'm saying I am an addict. and I'm in recovery. And I work a hard, good program, and I pay a lot of attention to it, but it's a pernicious disease. I've broken ribs twice last year, and I had to take the very drug that I loved. I was required to take in order to be able to exist, but I did it in a very carefully, very prescribed, very monitored way with a lot of contact. And there was no secrecy. I wasn't hiding it. It was out. The bottle was on the counter. My husband was like, everybody knew. You know, that's a big change for me. But I mean, I'm an addict, so I'm in recovery. I'm not recovered, never will be, but I am working on it.
You look fantastic. You've lost some weight.
Around 2 ounces.
I was gonna say about 2 ounces.
Yeah. No, I stopped drinking and I just kind of put the weight off.
Really? So you stopped drinking and the weight just, because they say that can really make a huge difference.
Yeah, I was having a lot of vodka with sausage and.
Was the sausage in the drink?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Delicious.
Yeah.
But bad for you.
Bad for you.
Swizzle sausage.
Yeah.
But I was getting in too much trouble with the drinking stuff, so I just kind of.
Was there an incident that sort of, because everyone, if they stop drinking, there's usually one thing that happens that makes them think, okay, now I gotta cut back.
This was about 20 things. One night I was walking. That's it. That's the story.
You just were like, I've got to stop walking. This walking thing is terrible.
I was walking through New York, and I was walking over towards one of the bridges to walk home, and I was on the Lower East Side, and I had gotten into the whiskey that night, and I was listening to my headphones, and this guy in a Jaguar, how do you say it?
Jaguar.
Yeah, one of those, cut me off when I was crossing Ludlow Street.
Yeah.
Now, if it had been a Chevy Lumina, I wouldn't have cared.
Right.
But this is a Jag and some fancy assholes in there, and
Yeah.
and so as it cut me off, I hit the car as hard as I can with my hands, just like, bam. Hey, I was like, oh man, Zach, you're real cool.
Yeah.
And
I've had some whiskey. I got my headphones on. I just hit a Jaguar.
Yeah. And I just keep walking and tap on my shoulder about 20 seconds later, and I turn around and it's 2 6'6" guys.
Oh.
12 by 12. And
they were cubes.
They were cubed. But anyway, there were 2 huge 6'6" guys, and I turn around, I take my headphones off, and they both at the same time spit in my face.
You're kidding.
Mm-mm. And I don't know if you've ever been spit in your face non-sexually, but but all I remember is being so stunned, and they walked away. I didn't really even say anything because I didn't know what to say. And I remember reaching into a trash can and grabbing a beer bottle and saying to myself out loud, "Nobody spits in Zach Galifianakis' face." I threw the beer bottle at the car, and it missed. And that's my story.
Yeah. I wish you had said.
Well, nothing big happened. But that's one of the reasons
You decided to cut back.
cut back a little
The guys didn't recognize. They spit on you. They obviously didn't recognize you. What about? I mean, now
I was wearing a Nixon mask.
Well, this story's changing a lot.
No, I don't think. No, they didn't recognize
No.
me. If they did recognize me, they probably would have done more than spit in my face.
Yeah, but I'm curious. Do you like? We've known you for a really long time, and we've seen you blow up and become this big star. Do you like being famous and being recognized?
I don't, and I understand the irony of saying that on a talk show. But I don't. I've had trouble. I'm kind of private, and I try to. If I see a pack of teenagers walking my way, forget it. I will run.
Right.
Yeah.
You'll run the other way.
Yeah, run the other way for sure. Yeah, it's a tricky thing to be noticed.
Do you notice that there's a kind of, like, it's a certain kind of person that notices you more than...
Well, it's never anybody wearing a doctor smock. It's always somebody like with a Who Farted t-shirt.
Never a surgeon?
Never a surgeon.